We are Josh and Jess Plymell of Rowe by Rowe Organic Farm.
Welcome to this episode of Katy on the Farm. We're in Luthersville, Georgia at Rowe by Rowe Farm, and we're here to talk to Josh and Jess Plymell about their organic produce operation. And let me tell you, it's beautiful. I'm hungry already. Come on along.
Backroad Sports Television Network, the location to find rural high school sports. Go to our website today at backroadsports.tv.
We're here today with Josh and Jess Plymell of Rowe by Rowe Organic Farm in Luthersville, Georgia. And thank you guys so much for having us out. We're really excited to be here. It's a little chilly for Georgia, guys. I would have liked to have dialed this back a little. But this place is beautiful. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, thank you and welcome. Glad to have you. We are a small-scale no-till farm. We direct market to a farmer's market in Atlanta, restaurants, and a couple CSA business models.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
We're rounding out our second season here. So we've been farming. This will be our sixth season total, but on our own land, our own farm, row by row. This is our second season, second year.
Fabulous. All right. Yeah. Well, it's really gorgeous. I can't wait to see what you're growing. Can we take a tour?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Now, Josh and Jess, this is called Rowe by Rowe, but there's a spelling discrepancy. Is there a story there?
There is, yes. So the second row in the name is spelled R-O-W-E, and that is my mother's maiden name. And the land that we're on has been Rowe Farms for at least 5 generations that we can go back.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, family land. And what happened here before you guys took over?
This particular area that we're in now was row cropped. So whether it was a cash crop, so my uncle talks about a big field of watermelons was here at one point, or squash or something large, or picking beans. He always talks about picking beans over here. And they also raised, around this area, they would raise corn for pigs, and mostly their main source of income was pigs. They ran quite a few pigs.
I see. It's really neat to have the history of your land back that far and to kind of have a line and a tie to it. I don't think most of us can go back 5 generations like that. That's really cool. So, so you guys came here a couple years ago, and why? What was your motivation? Did you just say, we would like to do something out in the elements all the time? Or was it to feed people, or was it all of the above? What's your motivation for getting up and standing out here in the cold?
I think it's a number of things. Her and I are wrapping up our 6th season, and I think when we entered this realm of agriculture, we started for certain reasons, passionate about the food change in this country, sustainability, environmentalism.
I guess I'll go back really far. Okay. Neither one of us grew up in Georgia, which is a really neat thing, I think, for us. I grew up in Texas, not in agriculture, and Josh grew up in North Carolina, in the horse industry a little bit, but not necessarily in
small town North Carolina.
And so coming to Georgia, we both came separately. We moved to Georgia both fresh out of college, wanting to grow food, wanting to grow it sustainably, organically, ethically, and we made our way to Georgia. We made our way to this land 2 years ago, which is a beautiful thing, but it's nice to be back home.
Let's talk a little bit about the ethic that drives you. You both worked in ag prior to this piece of property. What did you do?
Well, we both came up the apprenticeship route and kind of cut our teeth there and slowly climbed the small ladder that there is in organic farming. So we kind of each took on co-manager roles, assistant manager roles, and then we moved in together trying to take advantage of this opportunity to manage a small no-till farm. And so we did that and, just learned a ton, added on to our already existing foundation of knowledge. And somewhere around that time, after about 2 years, this kind of fell in our lap. And so we felt like we had the experience and were familiar enough with the Atlanta market to just take the leap. And so 2 years ago, we started here. This was most recently a pretty heavily grazed cattle pasture. So that's what we started with, a completely blank slate. And so we put up a deer fence, started putting up infrastructure. No-till, preparing all these plots, and finally got them planted and going. And before all that, we took out a big loan through the FSA, so the USDA program, and that's kind of how we all got started.
FSA, that is a common theme. It absolutely is. So, well, we're excited to learn about the ethic that you're employing here and your motivations and see your methods. Where are we now, and what am I looking at?
This is a high tunnel we call C3H2, or 1, excuse me. So every plot has a name, and the hoop houses are even more confusing. So this is, it's middle of November, so all this stuff was planted about a month ago in October, trying to take advantage of what temperature and light we have at that time. So this is all, the goal here is winter production. And so, we've got radish, some cut greens, lettuces, and hawkerite turnips. And these respond best to the limited light and temperature that we have. So we're looking for quick turnover,
Right.
something we can get up and harvested and sold. Again, while we don't have too many warm days or sunny days. So this is kind of what we're working with.
Right. This time of year, everything real quick to mature. Right. Yeah.
And so we have 8 beds. We operate on what should be a 30-inch bed system, and I think they kind of expand and contract over the months even. And we do again no-till. Additions of compost, a little bit of fertilizer, and all that is done, with the goal of creating soil biology and improving microbial life and feeding the soil. So, and that's a lifetime of study.
Right, it absolutely is. I'm on that journey as well, the soil growth and feeding journey. So we'll have to keep talking about that. Now, is this an emitter as well? Is this an overhead waterer that I see here? And you also have the strips in the rows. So what's the difference? Why sometimes overhead and why sometimes on the bed?
They each have their advantages and disadvantages. This we're actually going to remove today, the overhead. It's really great for getting good germination, especially on direct seeded crops like cut greens or roots. So that's my favorite way to use it. It also can help cool things like lettuces during the summer. But you have to be careful about how you use it. And again, in this low light, low temperature environment right now, we cannot use it too much. Otherwise you're kind of inviting disease and moisture and all that. So
The efficiency of the
it's not ideal
strips
all the time. And so then you kind of transition to drip, and it has its place. Like you said, it's efficient. Gets water where you need it to go, and it's less likely to encourage disease.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Katy Rogers. I hope you'll be right back after this message to join me.
brassicas look beautiful. Everything is really picturesque. I'm noticing I don't see any plastic weed suppression out here. What do you do for weeds?
You want to handle that one, Jess?
Sure. So there's many facets to our weed cultivation or weed management program. So we don't till our soil, which is huge. So we're not inviting the weed seed bank back into our soil and taking that whatever weeds are in there and bringing them to the surface. So there's that. We do add compost just between every planting. So we have that all over mulch kind of idea about that too. So we're adding a layer of compost so it's covering the soil. And then for certain crops, we do go in and add straw mulch. So we've got a guy down the road who grows beautiful grass. Without any weed seeds, he doesn't spray. It's great. So we use that for all of our large crops. So like this broccoli here and the cabbage and the kale behind us, it's all got a nice thick layer of mulch. And then we do hand pick weeds. It is a thing. They do pop up. So we use what's called a wheel hoe. So a nice stir-up hoe with the big wheel on it that we can push for our pathways to get rid of any weeds there, and then we'll go and hand weed if we have to. And right now it's great. There's not a lot of weeds because it's cold. But we do have weeds, but we try to pick them early and often.
And
so
we
they
made
don't
big
go to seed.
improvements even after a year. You know, we did an initial till, and so quite a few weeds came up.
Right.
And so that first year, doing a lot of weeding, and of course carrying into the second year, but there's been a noticeable difference. So.
My first year of planting broccoli in South Georgia, I put it out when I had calculated it should go out, but didn't manage that soil temperature. And I mean, the heads got that big and bolted immediately. So we learned to eat broccoli flowers, I'm not kidding, which are delicious.
Yeah.
They really are. But we never got those beautiful heads that first year because we hadn't managed that aspect of temperature. And of course, brassicas will bolt. So this is, by the way, I love the deer fence. You have the most beautiful deer fence. I've seen different methods, and I'm sure this was a lot of work, but has it been completely effective?
So far, so good.
Awesome.
As you saw when you came in, our gate isn't 8 feet tall.
No.
So they can get in. But we haven't had any issues with deer. You know, we have mice and rabbits that come in and armadillos. That's been our biggest issue.
With the drought.
But yeah, it's been rather effective. And it was the very first thing we did in June and July of 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put this fence up and knew that we didn't want any deer coming in.
In our previous farming experiences, we dealt with deer and dealt with the loss, and so when we started up, it was like, hey, let's put up a deer fence just to go ahead and eliminate that.
Yeah, this isn't just a salad bar for us. This is a
yeah.
huge salad bar for the deer. Well, you did a beautiful job with that. I like the 8-foot wooden post with the bracing and everything. It looks like it's going to last a long time. Now, as we look that direction, I'm also seeing perennials. And what do you have as perennials here?
So we have 4 different varieties of blackberries along here, and then I think, 4 or 5 different varieties of blueberries here behind us that are pretty young. And that was the second thing we did right after the deer fence. So like Jess just said, 2 years ago this week, I think, we started planting all these.
All right.
And they're real popular in the Atlanta market, both for the farmers market, chefs. So we find it's a way to kind of set ourselves apart, and, you know, they like the fruit, and then they buy the lettuce and all the stuff that comes with it.
And then behind us along that fence line, we have some Asian pears.
Oh.
So those trees, and then we can't see them, but there are some persimmons along the other fence line.
Yep.
Excellent.
You can't tell, but they're there.
They're a little less impressive.
My first time having fruit in the ground, my kids were really little, and we thought they weren't producing. Nothing was producing the first 2 years. We didn't know what was happening. But once they got taller than where the kids could reach, they were producing like crazy above that line. It was because our kids were taking it all beforehand. So yeah, it's popular. And now even at farmers markets, the first thing, if they see fruit, that's what they're going to get. So I can see that being very popular there. It's an easy give for everybody. Yeah. Even if you're not super into vegetables, you probably like fruit, right?
Yeah.
It brings people in the booth, and that's really important. Once you get them in, then you can sell them the broccoli and the carrots and the cabbage and whatever else. But
absolutely.
We need to get them in first.
So you've got annuals, perennials, inside the gorgeous. How big is this?
This is 4 acres, so the fence is 4 acres inside. And then what we've got for growing space in our annual vegetables is about 2 acres. And then I usually say that we have 1 acre in perennials. It's probably not correct.
Imprecise. Yeah, we understand imprecise in garden space.
And then the rest is just driving lanes and infrastructure.
All right, so that's a lot of space for 2 people. You have help?
We do now.
Okay.
I would say that was one of the biggest challenges, I think, in just being young and taking on a project like this. We did all the building and first year stuff ourselves, and which is wonderful in a lot of ways, but provided a lot of learning opportunities.
It's not sustainable pace,
it's not,
is it?
No, it was absolutely not. So earlier this year, or I guess over the winter when we were kind of doing our planning and things like that, we said, okay, we need to get some help. And so we started seeking, employees and kind of the avenues that we came up on, ATRA and Good Food Jobs, things like that. And really weren't getting any hits. We don't have housing, so that kind of makes the apprenticeship route a challenge.
Yeah, you're a ways away from
We're a ways
population
away.
centers.
So I ran into, a young guy and kind of the only store around here. And I just told him what we were doing, asked him if he needed a job. He looked young and fit and had really, good manners. And so it was just a long shot. We'd still been going and we're well into the season. It was like April or May and still had no hits. And so, he ended up getting up with us and he's, like our assistant manager now.
Oh,
and,
great.
He's just taken so much off of our plate and taken us to the next level. And we've had a couple more employees since. So we have a crew, two full-timers and then a part-timer. And it's been a wonderful experience. So that's kind of been the new chapter of this year, is truly learning to manage and delegate and create a good culture for our employees and try to prevent turnover.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And we value every single job created in our rural spaces, don't we?
Exactly.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
small
very much
economies
so.
were one thing that we were drawn to. I mean, we love, small business and creating jobs in rural America is really important in bringing back the small farm, and that's like a critical component.
Hi, I'm Katy Rogers. I hope you'll be right back after this message to join me. Jess, you're the lettuce person here, right?
I am.
All right.
Yes.
Big fan. This is so beautiful. I'd like to pick some right now. What is this gorgeous red lettuce?
Yes, so the red lettuce is a red butterhead. Our favorite variety is Alkindus from Johnny's. It's the most consistent lettuce I've ever grown, the way it heads out, the way it tastes, the way it looks throughout the spring season and the fall winter season. We're pretty well known for our lettuce at our farmers markets, and it's one of my favorite things to grow. I know that's really silly, because lettuce is...
It's not. I'm the same way. I think this is the most beautiful thing you could look at, is the red and green of the lettuces.
It's beautiful, and it's simple to grow and it's simple to eat, but we've had folks who hated salads their entire life, and now they buy our lettuce every week and eat salads all of the time because of the way it tastes. It's alive, it's beautiful, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I know that's my story. I grew up thinking I hated salad because I hated iceberg.
Yeah.
And, and I'll die on that hill. Iceberg's disgusting. And so, my mom one year grew a spring mix, and it was a little much,
but it was different.
Yeah.
And so then working in restaurants in college, I got exposed to other varieties. So there's a whole world out there, and it's worth exploring. And it's such a quick crop too. I mean, I love my perennials. That's a big thing for me, but something that I can get in, 30 to 60 days is really appealing.
It's wonderful, and we're seeding every other week in the greenhouse. We're planting every other week outside. In the summer even, we'll plant once a week heads of lettuce, heat-tolerant type varieties. We're still figuring out what works best for us, but it's one of those things another thing that brings people in the booth. If you've got lettuce in a hot time of year, people want to eat it. I want to eat it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So definitely select your seeds for heat tolerance and be cognizant of that. But you can get some very cold tolerant and some very hot tolerant now.
Definitely,
and long season.
We found, if we can see that, the green back there, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's Panisse, the variety, and it grows for us. We found really great in the summer, and we had some killer hot days consistently, and then it's growing for us just fine right now in the cold.
What do I see on the other side of the fence here? It looks like there's a few acres.
Yeah, so we've got a multi-species cover crop. We've got a crimson clover, a rye, and a daikon radish to bust up some compaction. And unfortunately, we also have some cows over here.
I see that.
So this is a new project that we started a few months, or I guess 45, 50 days or so. And with the goal of bringing the cows in the spring once the cover crop matures.
Right.
But I can't quite communicate to them that they're not supposed to be on it yet. It's a bit premature. So yeah, the grass is always greener, and they're not responding well to the electric fence. And so my dog and I, we are removing them pretty often.
Regularly?
Yeah.
Your cows don't speak English?
No, they don't.
Note to self.
No. But if they just knew that I was trying to create a buffet for them in the spring, then I think, we'd all be a little happier. But
Hi, I'm Katy Rogers. I hope you'll be right back after this message to join me. Jess, I love microgreens, and you have so many varieties here. Can you tell us how you do this?
Yes, definitely. So first we start, we fill our trays with potting soil. So we use potting soil solely because we already have it for our seedling house. So we buy potting soil for all of our transplants. And so instead of buying something different for microgreens, we just use the potting soil. And we measure out all of our seeds beforehand. We broadcast them on the trays, on these flat trays, and we stack them 3 high. So I think we can see a few around us that are stacked. And after about 4 to 5 days, depending on the weather mostly, we'll unstack. And as you can tell, like this particular tray was unstacked 2 days ago, so we still have some yellow here. In the summer, it turns green within 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
In this time of year with lower light, it takes a little bit longer. So we transition our seed schedule for the winter growing times. So like in the summer, we're seeding on a Monday and harvesting the following Friday. This time of year, we're seeding on a Thursday and harvesting 2 Fridays later.
Okay. So that's very quick turnaround. I'm really intrigued by your stacking process. So by stacking, you keep those bottom trays in the dark, and you have, which is the colored variation, right?
Correct.
And you just broadcast, and you don't actually cover the seeds, do you? That's the covering of the seeds.
So the stacking is that's what's putting that pressure on the seed. So you've got the top tray on top of those seeds, putting that pressure, so it's forcing it to be in the soil essentially. So instead of throwing soil across the top, which works, but I've found that anytime I would put soil across the top, my greens would be dirty, and we don't wash our microgreens.
Right.
So our greens would be dirty, but then also they would rot quicker, having that
From soil
right on
contact.
top. So we find that we stack them, and these were these right here in front of us that are stacked right now were seeded on Thursday of last week, and today is Tuesday, and I will probably unstack those tomorrow, and they will be for harvest next Friday.
That's really fascinating to me. I have not seen that before. Thank
Yeah.
you for teaching me that.
Yeah, and this for us is a big source of income in the winter. So we have our 4 high tunnels that we grow our salads in, and our salad mixes are lettuces, celery, like we saw, kale and chard. But then we also grow tons of microgreens. We have this in front of us is broccoli. We do a mix that's broccoli, cabbage, and kale, and we call it power greens. That one's really popular. We do a spicy mix with radish and mustard and kale to round it out. We do pea shoots, we do sunflower shoots, and then we do micro herbs. So we've got some micro dill, which is so awesome on salads. It's one of those things where you don't even have to throw a dressing on. You just top it with a little dill. It gives it enough flavor. It's really great. And then micro cilantro, which we can never grow enough micro cilantro.
I believe it.
Everyone loves it. It's so finicky, but people love to eat it. If you look around here, you'll see trays that are halfway germinated or whatever, because we just can't quite figure out the cilantro.
It's
But
so good.
It's so good.
It's so good, though. If you can do cilantro, it's so good. My daughter would be disgusted. She's one of those people, she said, it tastes like soap. And I'm like, no. That I haven't seen micro herbs like this, with the exception of basil. I've seen people do basil like that.
And we do basil as well, and I'll show you this awful looking tray. There comes a time of year where the basil just says, no, I'm not doing it anymore.
Right.
And that is now. And I've got so many trays in here that look like this, unfortunately, because I didn't realize that. But I will make a note for next year.
My chickens would love that, by the way.
And I think I'll bring it to ours.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Feed it to the chickens. Well, I love the idea of doing the micro herbs, and I might have to try this now. I've learned a lot today.
It's great. And I will say, whatever your system is, for us, 3 high works the best. Any higher with trays, I find that bottom tray or the second to last tray is too compact or gets starts to rot because it gets too hot underneath there. But 3 has been our method.
All right, and these are a special depth of tray. These aren't the same trays that we would use when we're starting like cells.
Right, they're a shallow 10-20 tray. Okay. They're either called microgreen. I don't think they're ever actually called microgreen trays. Okay. I think they're just called shallow 10-20s.
Gotcha. And a 1020 is all of the trays that are that standard size you see at the greenhouse or that most of us have at our houses. Those are all 1020s. So this is a shallower version of that. These look gorgeous. I might start grazing. Thank you for sharing this with us, Jess. Yes. Josh, Jess, thank you so much for having us out. The place is gorgeous. The food looks amazing. And I've learned some stuff today, so I really appreciate that. Can you tell our audience, where can they look for you and get these products?
Well, we're in the Atlanta market. You can find us at the Freedom Farmers Market at the Carter Center. Several Atlanta restaurants, and if you like CSA model, food delivery, Fresh Harvest, as well as more Farms and Friends CSA.
All right, fantastic. Lots of ways to get Rowe by Rowe Farms produce from Josh and Jess here in Luthersville, Georgia, and I hope you'll join me next time for another episode of Katy on the Farm.